much like the next film we'll talk about,
Yes.
Without Remorse.
Would you say you've killed my intro there, Scott? I was going to ask Drew. Would you say you don't have any remorse about watching that half-hour Almodovar film, Drew? Did you say something? Did you say something about a navel gaze? What? Say what you will about Tom Clancy's politics.
Naval gaze. No. They're allowed now, right, in the United States.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, I'm reading that a different way, but thanks for killing the actual start of my review as well. We're professional like that. Say what you will about Tom Clancy's politics. No, go ahead, say what you will.
He would like the naval gaze, I don't think.
Yeah, he didn't like the naval gaze. He had a naval gaze, yet ironically did not like naval gaze. The man wrote some decent enough thrillers, even if erring somewhat on the masturbatory so far as Militaria is concerned. We've had a decent enough volume of mid to high quality movie adaptations from his works, and now Amazon have seen fit to bring us this adaptation of Without Remorse, the record-breaking 1993 novel that tells the origin story of recurring Clancy figure John Clark. Formerly John Kelly, the novel sees the protagonist, a former Navy SEAL, grieve a dead wife before his new love is tortured and murdered by a drug trafficking ring, being left for dead, rehabilitated and sent to wreak havoc in Vietnam, then returning to the US to set about assassinating more drug traffickers, fake his own death, and change his name to embark on a career of more murder for the CIA. I mean, it's the life we'd all want to live. I bring this up in some detail because it's important to understand that the movie Without Remorse has absolutely nothing to do with any of this. In fact, it's got so little to do with any of this, one wonders why bother labelling it as such in the first place. It is also really, really bad and really, really stupid. In our instance, John Kelly, Michael B. Jordan, is an elite Navy SEAL. And there the similarities end. We join him and his colleagues on a mission in Syria, spearheaded by slippery CIA operative Robert Ritter, Jamie Bell, which turns out to be a covert strike against Russian assets in the area. When it all goes predictably pear-shaped, the team are understandably miffed at Ritter, but not as miffed as they will be when they start getting knocked off back home in an apparent act of retaliation by the Russians. Now, that's a decent enough setup for a movie like this, but unfortunately, there the intrigue ends and the stupidity very much begins. Kelly's pregnant wife is killed in the attempt on his own life, which leaves him badly shot up, and from here we end up going down that predictable and woefully overtrodden road of macho revenge fantasy. A macho revenge fantasy that sees Kelly's rage leveraged by the CIA in an entirely improbable incursion into Russia, which basically serves to lend the movie a scale it neither earns nor deserves. The whole endeavour is so massively improbable that at times it defies belief, and I find it hard to imagine Clancy would have approved of the kind of ineptitude displayed here, albeit fictionally, by his beloved military. I was initially baffled by the presence of Jordan, arguably one of the best young actors of his generation, who is here merely functional. When I realised he had a producer credit, I was perhaps even more perplexed, but then one assumes this was planned as some kind of a vehicle for further franchise entries in the Clark saga for Jordan to spearhead. Whether those will now materialise, only time will tell, but if they do, I hope a lot more respect is paid to any source materials that may be involved. Jamie Bell is at least having some fun as the convincingly scummy Ritter, even if his unexpected emergence as a genuine ally later in the film comes incredibly unconvincingly. I don't know how much fun, if any, director Stefano Sollima would have been having, because despite his strong credentials in both film and television to date, he clearly cannot escape the stupidity of Taylor Sheridan and Will Staples' script. In fairness, he manages to wrangle one or two decent moments of action, notably an interrogation inside of a burning car, but there's nothing whatsoever here to parallel his work on the likes of Gomorrah or 000. I'd honestly suggest that even Clancy diehards ought to avoid this one, and in fact I'd say it'll probably anger them the most. For my part, I just don't care about Without Remorse, other than to grudge it the 2 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Those 2 hours which you have plenty of remorse about.
Yes, indeed. You guys haven't seen this, have you?
No.
Good for you.
This is was it there for the third screen portrayal of John Clark, I guess?
Sounds about right, because you had Willem Dafoe and Liev Schreiber, I think, as well.
Schreiber and Summerville Fears, yeah.
Yes, and this is certainly the least convincing of them all. It's just really disappointing to find Jordan so involved at numerous levels of this material, because it's not good at all. And I'm blaming Taylor Sheridan and Will Staples for the script, but I suspect, I don't know, it might be Will Staples, because Taylor Sheridan's got some form. with his previous works, and there's enough evidence there that he knows how to write stuff. And some of this is just so egregiously bad that you think, wow, okay, maybe Taylor Sheridan, had a first pass, and then Will Staples came along and just, I don't know, spilled jam on it or something. It's just, I mean, I don't even want to go down the rabbit hole of discussing specifically things about this film that are stupid, because I wouldn't know where to start, and I certainly wouldn't know where to end, and it would take up the rest of the podcast. But I mean, it's the kind of film where I was listening to another podcast, and it was a while ago now, and the name of it escapes me now, but they had on a guest who was an actor himself. He was one of the guys who acted in... it's the detail I give that makes these anecdotes impressive. What was that silly horror film about people in Scandinavia taking drugs and...
Midsummer.
Yes. He was one of the actors in Midsummer. Right. And he made a comment about this type of movie where straight away he said, you know exactly what I'm talking about if I say to you a middle-aged man looks at someone's body and goes, no! Right? It's that, but wrapped around something that's trying to be a Tom Clancy thriller. But Tom Clancy would never write a thriller where an American military incursion and the people planning it would be so stupid as to go into somewhere so volatile as Russia, where any direct American military involvement on the ground is going to lead to World War III. And they're going to go in there in a poorly planned mission carrying American gear, American weapons, dressed in American...
Carrying hamburgers and Budweiser.
Yeah. You're just like, no, this is not a thing. Please, this is not a thing. I mean, maybe one day I'll go back to this and write an exhaustive list of all the things that are stupid about it, but I don't know. Maybe it's the masochist in me. Maybe I will do that. It's just like impressively stupid, and I don't want anyone to waste their time on it. And it's just really disappointing that Michael B. Jordan, who is someone who I really like in most stuff that he's done, clearly feels invested in this to the point where he kind of wants to make a franchise out of it, because everything has to be a franchise these days. It has to be conceived as a series, and as an opening salvo, this is just so poorly conceived at every level that I really hope it gets shut down pretty quickly.
I'm curious about the construction of it, because Taylor Sheridan's had a couple of bad films, particularly the sequel to Sicario, but then Sicario was so good and Hell or High Water was excellent as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Will Staples has done Call of Duty games and they're good story-wise, particularly
and honestly,
Modern Warfare 3.
This is much closer to something like that than it is to something like Hell or High Water. So
certainly sounds like it.
Yeah. So yeah, please avoid.